All right. I can't see none of you. Those lights are so bright, but I assume the hallway's packed. Thank you so much for coming out, San Francisco. How are we doing? Yeah, let's go. All right. So, Mike Wedden, VP of Product. I've been with Datadog almost 9 years now. I joined in 2016. And at that time, we just had one product, and the company was smaller than this crowd here, right? But even then, in 2016, the company was already 6 years old. And the founders, Olivier Pomel, the one I think super stoked on the left there, and his co-founder, Alexis Lê-Quôc, they had been peers at a successful education company called Wireless Generation. And one was VP of development and one was senior director of operations. And even though they were buddies, they'd gone to the same school, they'd done IBM together, now they're Wireless Generation together, their teams didn't get along. Dev and ops, it hadn't quite taken off yet, right? So, and I can relate, before Datadog, I was a developer for about 12 years. And there were times in which I pushed code and went to lunch, right? And then people try to call me and find me and say, you just took down 150 websites. What are you doing, right? And I'm like, that's not my problem, that's your problem, right? I tested it locally, everything worked great. So they said, if we ever build a company, let's do something to fix this DevOps. It was also early in the cloud story. So AWS had just started to take off and they saw, oh, people aren't going to need as much expertise. Innovation, this emerging technology is really going to take people from idea to production scale very quickly. There's something happening here, and DevOps could be a real thing that as a developer, I could run my own services. And when I joined Datadog, it was the first time as a developer, I was expected to instrument my code, not only get it through CI/CD and into production, but now I couldn't go to lunch. I had to make sure my things were operating in the ecosystem, right? And so what is observability to them, to Datadog, right? Because it's in the DNA of the company, and it's really being able to answer for your service any of these 5 questions at any given time. And in order of priority, probably depending on how big your company is, right? Accessibility, sometimes people say availability, reliability, but it's really, am I up or down? Is my service even on, right? And this is typically where we get paged, where something really crazy is going on. But then security, compliance, performance is really about user experience, latencies, errors, and cost. Can I even afford my business? And we'll get into cost later because this emerging technologies, and this is happening, we're seeing that with AI, but even with the cloud, it enabled you to do a lot more, but you were moving so fast and the response from the market was so excited that you didn't have time to be efficient, right? And then the bills start coming in and you're like, oh God, we're not making any money. So cost for me is a key part of observability. They also realized that they would need a platform, right, across the entire software application stack. So when I started, we just had one product, which was infrastructure monitoring, right? But from the very beginning when I first started, they were already working on APM. They're already talking about log management. They're already talking about synthetics and RUM, even though they were years away from actually implementing this vision. From the beginning, they knew how to build software. They understood the components to understand, because a lot of times you might have your network and your infrastructure so instrumented, you've got so much visibility, and then people are still tweeting your website's down, or I can't. And then the CEO might say, why didn't we catch this? Why are users still triggering our incidents, right? So this ability to instrument this whole stack that we were just looking at in an old monolithic application in a smaller organization, not easy, but doable. But now, with the explosion of complexity, the cloud brought a lot of complexity, brought a lot more people into the conversation, a lot more technologies, computers being distributed. I see people installing databases on gas pumps now. It's bananas how distributed and chaotic the boundaries of technology are coming, right? And so this is only getting even wilder now with generative AI, in that now you have creative applications that can come up with their own hypotheses and ideas and respond to your users in ways that you can't anticipate. And so how do we manage this growing complexity. It's compounding, right? But here's the pitch. That's what Datadog is for, is to solve this complexity at scale. And I think at scale is a key component here. So as we've built out from infrastructure monitoring, the goal was always to cover the entirety of your tech business. So we just talked about the history of innovation, which was really about how does Datadog build a platform. And when I say platform, I don't mean the box of broken toys that a lot of times people try to market as a platform. Datadog, we did start as a data inspection company and then moved into alerting as customers said, actually, I want you to monitor my cloud infrastructure. That's where the real issue is. And the idea of being able to build something that we can continue to build a flywheel of product innovation on top of. Even when we do M&A, we've done about half a dozen deals over the last year, bought companies. When those companies join Datadog, they have to rewrite all their software from scratch on the Datadog platform so that it feels integrated, so that they're injecting the value and the expertise that they built up over a number of years into Datadog so all the products benefit, right? And in some ways, that flywheel, while it took a long time of early investment, you can see it took a little while to ramp up. It's allowed us, these are just new products in 2025, it's allowed us to innovate very quickly. So that's one way in which we're able to scale product solutions very fast, to try to stay a little bit ahead of wherever you're at with what your company's trying to do. The hope is Datadog is there before you need it, right? So that when you're adopting these new technologies, we already have solutions. These are all, even just the first half of this year, all the product and features that we've announced, right? The other reason that we're able to move so fast is because we use Datadog. Our engineers are confident shipping maybe dozens of times a day across all the services with high confidence that things are instrumented. They'll be able to detect issues early and take action so that your Datadog, which is really in some ways a utility company for you, stays up and running, even with rapid innovation. So over the next 10 hours, I want to go through each one of these individually with you. And just kidding. I chose 10 of them, right? So in 10 minutes, I'm going to try to go through 10 products. We'll see if we can do it. Here we go. So the Datadog platform, we're trying to address the whole software delivery lifecycle, not just the application stack. So I want to start on trying to prevent incidents earlier, or going back into the whole shift left movement. How can we engage the developers, most of the engineering resources in your companies much earlier in the process? So the first thing I wanted to talk about was actually the MCP server, because it's had brought a pretty exciting adoption and pretty exciting response. So Model Context Protocol, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a new interaction method with intelligent systems. So more than just having to learn your APIs, it understands internal Datadog tooling and can interact with you in natural language or with your agents, right? So here we're looking at IDE, either VS Code or Cursor, but this has been so far the biggest reaction that we've gotten on the MCP server is just engineers staying in their context where they're working and being able to ask Datadog questions specifically around lines of code. How is this running in production right now? What are the latencies looking like? Are there any errors coming from this line of code? If I change this, can you help me understand what the outcomes are? This back and forth within the IDE has been incredibly powerful. And I've got a journal now of quotes of customers who've said, this helped me to resolve incidents faster. It seemed to understand the context of my code, et cetera. It's pretty exciting. Next is internal developer portal. So really this is about standards and setting up as an organization, being able to personalize Datadog and have Datadog understand through observed state, help you to build a program of reliability and push that out to the whole company. So being able to develop golden paths, set scorecarding against teams and how they're adopting, from observed architectures and infrastructure and services to apply ownership, make sure everything's documented, make sure you have run books. All this goes into this, and even being able to do enforcement, so gating deployments when a team hasn't instrumented their code or they haven't run security checks, all these types of things. Internal developer portal is really about pushing standards across the company. This one I'm very excited about. It's coming out in the next month. Datadog feature flags and experiments. This will be the first time on market that you can do automated canary deployments. So Datadog's feature flagging set feature will be completely unique in the industry in that it's informed by live telemetry. So the way that your production environment is working, as you go to roll out a new feature, I don't know how you do it, but when I used to do it, you can 5%, is everything okay? Okay, cool. 10%, am I in trouble? Anybody complaining? Any errors? Any tweets? No? Okay, just go 20%, and you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You get up around like 60, 70%, and you're like, I guess we're cool, let's go. And maybe some of you are more responsible than what I was, and you've instrumented or some of these things yourself with internal tooling. But this will allow you to start to ship things, and then Datadog will be able to help you make those decisions faster. Oh, we're detecting latency increases by comparative windows. Oh, we're seeing new types of errors because we have error tracking. We actually automatically cluster group all your errors. You should roll back. Or, hey, after 10%, this looks fine. Statistically, this is going to be okay. Go straight to 100. So really making your developers more confident to push code much quicker. So moving over to the next section here, modernizing observability. So this is the bread and butter, right? How do we know when something's wrong? How do you get it working again? How do you learn from it and build more robust systems in the future? The first one I want to talk about, we're going to go more in depth on Bits AI SRE, so I won't say too much except for that this is an autonomous agent that can respond to alerts and do preemptive investigations and find root cause so that when you show up, a lot of times it's already found the problem for you. On the tail of that is our AI dev agent. The exciting thing about our dev agent is, we're not getting into general coding agents trying to compete with Cloud Code and these types of things. Instead, we have a unique opportunity that when Bits finds an RCA with high context, with a lot of investigation material already, Bits should be able to tell you what next steps to take and even generate the code. So generating Terraform or generating code that you can roll forward with because it understands the context and can even write the unit tests and things like that and deploy for you with experiments and feature flags. Next up, I want to talk about data observability, and this is interesting in that this is something that didn't even come up very often for me in conversations 2-3 years ago, but now it comes up all the time. Data engineering teams and data programs used to just support business intelligence or finance, but now things like Snowflake, Databricks, BigQuery, they're supporting production workloads and production business cases, right? So I had a customer who they had a massive campaign that they needed to launch on a Tuesday night to support some Netflix launch, I believe. And they had 2 windows. The schema had been finalized on Thursday, the previous Thursday. They had 2 opportunities to run this massive batch job to support the campaign. And it took like 24 hours to run. A very expensive batch job failed the first time. So all hands on deck, every data engineer in the company having to respond, figure out where things went wrong, and then they only had 1 chance to run it again. Luckily, it ran for them, but they were sweating. So they went to the SREs and said, what do you guys use to monitor things? Like, we never want to live that life again. And they said, Datadog. So all of a sudden, that was one of the first conversations I had about, hey, we want that same kind of tooling for data observability because now it's supporting production. And that's typically where Datadog comes into the conversation. So things like data lineage, end-to-end lineage, how the data is changing, data quality, data freshness is all coming to market now. One of the key things with that as well is these are expensive. Like, big data programs are expensive. And so staying within your budget is increasingly a conversation that customers are coming to us with. We've had cloud cost monitoring for a few years now, but people have wanted us to go deeper and have more out-of-the-box views and insights on specific parts of their cloud infrastructure, and cloud storage being an easy one for us to iterate on. So here you can see all the data. Has it been accessed ever? What are the lifecycle policies? And what are recommendations that could save you a lot of money on data that's at scale, petabytes, sometimes in some customer cases, exabytes of data sitting in cloud storage, never getting accessed, not optimized. So easy savings there. And then the final one I want to talk about here is similar to the MCP, but in-app, a conversational approach for your responding engineers who are trying to troubleshoot things. Bits can read the screen. Bits understands your schemas, your context, and Bits is an expert on Datadog. Bits has consumed all the documentation. It's consumed a lot of session replays. It understands how people use Datadog to solve problems and can actually help you. So in this example that we're looking at here, here's a streaming platform that has a big event happening, has 5 or 6 CDNs running, and just anybody coming in without even having to understand the context or be an expert on how this company does streaming can come in and say, how is the general latency of my CDNs across them? And can you group them by CDN? And Bits is able to start having a conversation so you can tweak it and interact to get the answers you're looking for. So a conversational approach to investigations. All right, moving on into security. Look, security is your problem too, all right? And I don't know how many security experts, security teams we have out here, but if you're developing services, you need to be thinking about, are they secured? Are they under attack? And be able to collaborate with your security teams in a way, because look, if security teams find an issue, a lot of times they come to you to make changes to your environment. And so it's good to be collaborating within the same environment. And one of the biggest issues that we've heard from security teams is the amount of noise. Security requires broad coverage, and you have to follow up on every potentially suspicious signal. And this requires a lot of human labor right now to go through every potentially suspicious signal that we might detect. And Datadog has a threat intelligence team that's writing a lot of these scanning rules and are world experts on cloud security because we're servicing a massive part of the cloud security market. And so our internal threat intelligence team is also creating content for your security teams and for you as DevSecOps engineers. And we can reduce a lot of that toil. So Bits AI security analysts within our cloud team will actually go through and do a pre-triage on every single security signal that's detected, every single threat signal, and rule out maybe sometimes 80% of those, saving many, many hours of toil so that your team can really focus on truly suspicious and anomalous behaviors. So moving over to the user experience and the front end, many of you are already using RUM, and RUM is about detecting application errors and latencies on front end and mobile applications. One issue is that a lot of times these are consumer-based or high volume use cases. So even if it's not direct consumer case apps, right, which might generate millions of sessions, you might have running in like car displays within smart cars, et cetera. So millions of cars, people interacting all the time. We have customers that have this use case. I mentioned before, people doing smart gas pumps now, and there's media running there, and we're running their point of sale systems. So all across IoT, across consumer applications as well, RUM is trying to figure out how well that code is behaving. And a big problem has been visibility because the volumes are so big. So now with RUM Without Limits, you can send 100% of those sessions and we'll aggregate the most key analytics and trends off of those. And then we can store a representative sample so that you're not having to make those hard sampling decisions up front with head-based sampling. And finally, I want to talk about product analytics. Product analytics is about, if RUM is about application behavior, this is about your user behavior, allowing you to prioritize your business decisions by experiments and outcomes, and actually dive into, does the product intention, do the outcomes of what my product was supposed to be doing, are they matching up? Are we making the right product decisions, right? And how is the things that engineers are building and changing all the time impacting our users? All right. So this is, again, breaking down more silos across the company. And this is all within one unified platform. Y'all still with me? Yes, no? Y'all still with me. It's okay. Let's bring it home. All right. So I'm doing a little bit of like a Christmas Carol thing. We did the Ghostman Christmas Past, and then we did present. Now, a little bit of future looking things for Datadog. It's essentially, where do I feel Datadog could go with the opportunity we have in front of us? How might that benefit you as you're trying to also accelerate? Growth in the AI space is compressed. when I joined Datadog in 2016, I felt like we were already moving at a breakneck pace, and all of our peers are moving at a breakneck pace. And that's just compressed. You look at the startups now and what's expected in that, the time that they're working and the adoption of their tooling, just the innovation, the emerging technology has shortened even more that time from thought to scale, right? And Datadog's trying to stay, again, ahead of the curve there so that when you get to that scale, we already have these new emerging problems. As Sri was talking about, evals, making sure that your AI can demonstrate core competencies before you put it out in the world for your use case, as well as experiments are going to become increasingly important for any of you here who are trying to build new AI-enabled applications. And I've already seen, and I predict more in the future, new types of incidents with your AI going wild in production, right? And doing things that you didn't expect it, and being able to have to iterate on that super quickly and make corrections. And so how is Datadog's AI platform going to address these needs as we go forward? So first of all, we have a unique opportunity in that we have a core competency and we have all the right data, trillions of metrics, trillions of logs, complete architectures across many tens of thousands of customers. So if we look at all of our customers and all the architectures they're running across cloud providers, it's not 40,000 unique architectures, it's probably in the hundreds. And even if you're not perfectly instrumented, we saw from what Tristan was showing, Bits can make inferences about what it expects because we understand the cluster groups of architectures, that even if we don't know exactly what you might have deployed in some cases, we can make pretty intelligent inferences. There's human-like reasoning and thinking there to say, oh, well, we can't see everything here, but most people who have your similar architecture at your scale and traffic have a firewall here, and from what we detect in the signals, it's most likely something over here. And that is what the emerging technologies is bringing for us as well. We also understand your organizations, how you name services, right? So things that are very specific. We can not only have deep specialization in how cloud software works, but we can start to move towards personalization about how your company works as well. And bringing these together enables us to do more. Now, it takes a lot of investment, and we see the numbers out in the market of how much people are investing in AI. That's not slowing down here. 30% of our revenues we put back into R&D, which is unprecedented in the market for among our peers. Here we're looking at Toto, which is our time series predictive intelligence model. State of the art, and we're continuing to invest in this. And what it means, again, is this new emerging technology. What it is with less context, being able to make correct inferences about the state of the world and what actions you should take to improve your user experience. And so this one is time series, but we have lots of unique data at scale that we can use to help you even when you're not perfectly instrumented. And the reason I wanted to talk about that is that slide that Tristan showed about get ready for Bits. Make sure you have all your monitors, make sure everything's tagged, make sure everything's instrumented. Oh, that just drives me nuts, right? Because yes, that's what you need to do now, but in the future, that's not how it should be. You shouldn't have to be perfectly instrumented and an expert in Datadog and set up your monitors in order for the inferences to work, and we'll get there, right? But we need to learn and work with all of you. So Joshua was just calling out lots of startups using Datadog now, and we're learning how they're trying to build these new products and where it's working, where the technology is working, and where it still needs to progress. And they're living the world forward, and we're working with them to do that. We're also working with the largest at-scale AI companies to figure out where the AI works at scale as well and what problems they have. So we try to make sure that we're staying at the bleeding edge of both scale and go-to-market. So here's my controversial pitch for the keynote here. Is there a world in which you could have zero incidents? I said earlier that the reason Datadog was able to innovate so quickly is because we're using Datadog and our engineers can push code quickly with confidence, right? But we've been using Datadog since it started, and so we've grown up with it, so we have a unique advantage there. How can we make every company work like that so that you can just focus on innovating, right? In that time of creative idea to safe scale, safe, secure, compliant, cost-efficient scale is just seamless, I think it's a possibility. And I know of anybody here who's old school SRE and familiar with the Google SRE handbook, it says, don't even try for 0 incidents. Because what they're saying is, when you try for 0 incidents, the easiest way to do that is to stop innovating. Just don't change your environment. It'll never go down, right? But I do think we can introduce a lot of change, a lot of risk without bringing down production. And so this is the flywheel we're building. And to get rid of Tristan's slide, it means Bits is going to have to learn how to dynamically instrument your code when it needs. So you don't have to just have stuff logging all the time, which is super expensive, and only getting our customers' logs have grown 2 to 3x just over the last 12 months, right? And that's unsustainable. How can we only gather insight when needed in order to make decisions and make those decisions count? And I think there's a world in which we're starting to evolve in that way, where Datadog can monitor for stress in your environments, set your SLIs and SLOs for you based on the benchmarks we see of the data flowing through these architectures. And then when something seems stressful, figure out what effectors you need to take and keep taking that action until the system is back into a stable state. Now, single service automatic detection and response is pretty close. Bits SRE and Bits Dev Agent, for those of you who already have it enabled and are using it and giving us feedback, is actually doing some pretty amazing things. Where it gets a little more complicated, and where I think our next investments are, if you're at Dash and you saw our voice agent or our incident management agent, is any real serious incident is multi-service, multi-team coordination. You have to take multiple actions in tandem to bring the system back into a healthy state. And that requires us to learn a little bit more how teams work together so that agents can also work together across complex multi-service incidents. So this is where we're headed now. Our voice agent that we're working on will be able to join your Zoom bridges if you want, be able to listen to multi-conversation and lurk Slack and figure out who's talking about what, who's right, who's wrong, and start to contribute to that conversation, and then also be directed to take action. And we're already seeing in some very specific verticals, like we saw with Kubernetes auto-scaling, Datadog can actually feel confident running some of those operations maybe better than a person could. So that's my hope for the future, is that Datadog can continue to help you and your teams operate safely at scale, regardless of what the technology is bringing and the pace of technology and innovation, that our core value proposition of bringing more humans into the conversation to build creative solutions for human problems, Datadog can be a core component of that. So thank you very much. I'm going to throw it back over to Jeremy to see us off. Thanks.